My name is Lauren Kim. I'm 26 years old. I was born in Long Beach, California, but grew up in Orange County. I think that that search for like wonder and kind of digging deeper into why certain things are is kind of what drives my fascination, which is like I studied environmental studies and urban studies. I feel like there's always a layer of like wanting to go deeper and always this question of like, oh, there has to be more. And I think for me, because my parents, my mom was helping like drive Korean foods across grocery stores in California. My dad was this herbalist. It felt like I was like, oh, there has to be more to what it means to be like Korean than like an H Mart, right? Like there has to be more than like what my interest in like the plants around me are than this like manicured landscape that I like grew up next to. So I do think that I'm like following this thread of like, oh, like there has to be something more than this like material, everyday reality that's just my lifetime. Like I think that's what it is. It's this belief that I'm connected to something bigger, something grander, and something that's more that like outlasts my own lifetime. Currently, I work as an urban planner. I focus mainly on, I describe them as cultural and community assets. So I think that my kind of transformation into my like current career path was that I focused a lot on environmental justice and thinking a lot about equity and what it means to be a person of color in the environmental field. And I think that being in a space that was predominantly white in college and in my chosen career path made me think a lot about like, okay, like my role in this field means that I need to represent diverse communities that have not historically been included in these decision-making processes. And what I realized after doing really intense like organizing, justice-focused like equity work was that this is not the field or the exact work that I think drives that type of change. And so what I realized too was that trying to reframe my work and how I think about organizing in terms of joy. So not necessarily just justice first, but like joy and beauty. And so that's why I started working on a lot of parks and cultural centers. Right now I'm working on a project that's an arboretum in San Antonio. And I think that reframing of how I think about place is that, oh, it doesn't mean that like we're not thinking about what it means to build inclusive, equitable communities, but that all communities deserve beautiful places. All communities deserve places to feel joy. And I think that connects again with that curiosity and wonder. And I think where I find those places are like in nature, in community centers, in food and restaurants. I think that my connection to like food systems is really also a really foundational part of why I do what I do today. So my dad currently runs an acupuncture clinic in MacArthur Park. I would describe his clinic is called Hajo Holistic, and I would describe it as an acupuncture and apothecary. And for a while, we were looking a lot into what it meant to be a community-based acupuncture clinic. There is a long history of community-based clinics in the US and around the world that actually started with Black revolutionaries and about what it means to bring acupuncture to wider audiences. And so when my dad was starting this clinic, I actually kind of pushed him to be like, why don't we consider like making this a nonprofit? Like, why don't we consider making this a community-based clinic, like what that means? And I think what we ended up deciding is that right now, the space that we have, we're not able to serve large amounts of patients at a time, which is kind of the foundation of community-based clinics, is that you offer low-cost, affordable care at high quantities that reduces the price and then just like lets as many people as they can get in. But I think that what we kind of want to achieve for, down the line is to get a larger space to be able to do that type of work. But I would describe Hajo Holistic as a clinic, but also a kind of public education space, and thinking a lot about what it means to transfer knowledge and share knowledge with both patients and our general community as kind of how we're incorporating that community-based model into our current practice. I think there are certain moments in my life where I've seen traditional healing and modern medicine technology intersect that has swayed me one direction or the other. So when talking about the balance that, we want to find in our lives, or I want to find for myself between healing and traditional healing and modern medicine. I think about, for example, how, at least in my family, like how my parents' generation thinks about mental health, and how sometimes thinking about Western medicine, whether that's taking antidepressants or different forms of medication to help with mental health, is not necessarily the first answer that my parents would go to in terms of like how they would treat or process mental health issues. And so I think, especially for me and my sister, when we think about that tension, it's that, oh, like we as adults have kind of the agency to make health decisions for ourselves. And I think that when you are kids, you're not able to make those decisions for yourself. Whether it was like mental or physical health that didn't have the words for maybe when I was growing up, that now as an adult, I have the agency to make decisions about my own care. I communicate that with my parents in a way that is like, hey, this is what works for me, right? Instead of this is a choice that you have made for me. I think that I would really, really encourage like people, especially when they have immigrant parents that might not understand like mental health issues, that finding a form of care that works for oneself. I think that like kids and younger generations should have more agency over how they make those decisions. In terms of whether or not I feel that I have healing ability, I think that I almost think about it in the sense of like community organizing. Like I wanted to be an organizer when I was in college, and there was a couple moments where I just like, felt like, oh, like being a community organizer is not my path. Like that is not my voice for how I want to change the society that I live in. And when I ask that question to myself now, it's like, oh, what is the voice that I want to use to like positively impact my community? I lean towards I was like, oh, I think I want to be a healer. And I don't know if it means that I am a healer explicitly in the sense of, oh, I see patients and I like deliver treatment as an acupuncturist, but I want to be a healer in the sense where it's like making connections with people and also helping people make connections to systems that are larger than themselves. So I think when I think about healing, I think about how I want to like be an educator one day, and how there is just a way that I think about my relationships that I think is very much grounded in what it means to treat a patient with compassionate care. I think that those healing abilities come from my role in my family. So in my relationship with my sister, like my parents were still working a lot. So I just think that like being independent and, like taking care of ourselves with my sister, I think that that is probably where some of those healing abilities come from. I do think that the connection that I have with my family, my grandparents, and my extended family, I think that has given me a lot of perspectives in terms of like I am bigger than just my individual self. And so when I think about what it means to be a healer, I think that as I've like grown older in my life, it's been hard to separate myself from my family. But I realize that that is kind of the important task of growing up, right? Is to define the I in the we of my family. And when I think about how I do that, I think a lot of it comes from like maintaining my lens for why I am interested in this work, why I maintain relationships with my family, like why I exist really. Like it's defining that for myself that allows me to build relationships and like continue learning about healing in a way that I think is life-giving for me. In terms of what I would like to share with my parents, I think that it would be a thank you, of course, right? Like I think that in a lot of ways they have cultivated me into a really independent thinker and person. And I think because of that, I have been able to come back to my relationship with them in a way that feels reciprocal. And I think to them too, I also want to affirm to them that it's like, sometimes I feel like they think that it's like, oh, I'm doing this for them, right? I'm doing this because, we need to find a job for my dad, or like we need to figure this out. Where I think that actually I want to say to them, it's like, oh, I'm doing this because I am interested in, and like I want to do this. Like I think that this is an opportunity for myself to grow and learn that is invaluable and I can't find elsewhere. My name is Lauren Kim, and this is my Korean American story.